Salutations, ladies and gentlemen, the Knife Raven here, back again with another video, and happy Thanksgiving! For me at least, it was Thanksgiving 45 days ago, as I'm in Canada, but for all of my American friends, hope you're having a nice holiday, hope you had a nice dinner, perhaps, and today I am bringing you yet another Sheffield knife. Now, at this point, that is primarily what my channel is, and I'm perfectly fine with that. And this is going to be probably a quicker video, as this is a model I've already discussed once before, but I just figured I would showcase a different version of the same knife. And, well, regardless, the model that is going to be discussed today is the Peach Pruner. Now, this is my first, and up until just recently, only Peach Pruner knife. I have an Ettrick with a Peach Pruner blade, but this is the only example of the actual pattern I have, made by Wright in some very nice buffalo horn. And this is, I think, a recent production. It's got the typical Wright spring, very stiff. I'm always a little bit nervous now of stiff springs, but either way, this is a nice knife, and I got it for a very reasonable price when Heine Haynes had these available. But today, the version I'm going to be looking at is an older model, and this was bought from a store I have never really, well, I haven't heard much about them. And it's called City Cutlery. Now, not to be confused with my fellow knife YouTuber, Steel City Knives, by the way, go subscribe. City Cutlery is apparently a very long-term shop stationed in Sheffield that has been around for quite some time and is still currently selling various pieces of Sheffield steel and silverware. And among the products utilizing Sheffield steel, they sell pocket knives. Now, apparently they used to have knives from Trevor Ablett, the late and great Little Mester, but now they sell strictly Arthur Wright knives. Now, lately Arthur Wright has been hard to get hold of, as they are high in demand, but this store had a few of them, and well, first of all, before I actually show you the knives come with this, and it's a little drawstring velvet pouch. And there is an option you can remove this from your purchase, and you save, I think it was £1.50, if I remember correctly, so a couple dollars. But really, if the knife is, it's not going to be including any form of fancy leather sheath or slip, I actually see the use in this, as you can put it in your pocket with the knife, so it's not going to scratch any keys, or perhaps if you drop the knife, you aren't going to damage it, as it's got a little extra layer of protection. But either way, figured I'd showcase this first. These come with all the knives on this website, and of course, if you don't want it, you can remove it. And here is the knife. Now, again, this is a Peach Pruner, and this particular knife has rosewood for the covers. Very nice grain. It's not exactly coarse like oak, but it isn't smooth like ebony. Nickel silver bolsters, nice polish. Transitions are beautiful. Pins are flush. Gapping. There's a little bit of gapping here, and a little bit of gapping here. But aside from that, holding it up to the light, nothing really shines through. Polished spring. Brass liners. Blade centering on this piece is immaculate. That is dead center, and I was really impressed to see that, as my other Peach Pruner, I think, is close, but oh no, wait. It's very, very close. It's just a little bit off to the left, but this one is just perfect. But spring tension on this one, I would say probably a good 6. I definitely prefer the action on the buffalo horn model. Feels nicer, a bit snappier. However, with the stiffer spring, there is also that fear of something going wrong and the spring breaking on you. So while I prefer the action on this one, it does scare me a little bit more. This one's more pleasant, but at the same time, the action isn't as smooth. It's got a bit of a snap to it. Louder in the closing. There is also a small brass stop pin in here. Maybe if I open it up, it'll be easier to see. The very back there. Typical of Arthur Wright, it didn't come exactly cleaned. There is a little bit of grease still in the pivot mechanism. Granted, it was oiled, so that tends to happen. I also believe this is an older model, as the stamp here says A. Wright and Son Limited, Sheffield, England, whereas this one says A. Wright, Sheffield, England, and I believe this was a newer stamp that they started using, as I believe people have been complaining that this stamp was a bit too big, and as you can see, the England is starting to hide behind the bolster a little. So I believe if you see an Arthur Wright with this stamp, it's probably maybe 2021, 2022, whereas this one, I believe, was made in 2023. Although I could be wrong in that approximate. No blade play, which is typical with Arthur Wright. It's one complaint that I have never had with the brand. Yes, I've complained about gapping and over tight springs and sometimes edges that don't really come very sharp, but blade play has thankfully never been an issue. But nice, simple, not quite satin finish on the blade. You actually have a fairly nice grind here on the blade. That is one complaint that I did have in the past. The blades weren't exactly honed very well. But this one actually seems quite nice. The edge is surprisingly sharp. Now, again, as I said in the past, Arthur Wright knives have generally come fairly blunt. But this one, if I can just get a quick test here. If the camera will ever focus. Again, it's not the sharpest knife in the world, but it's definitely able to cut a few hairs. So I would say that, all in all, I think the blunt blade problem has been improving a little bit, as the first Arthur Wright knives I bought could barely cut paper. So even if they aren't razors automatically, being able to do some very light cutting shows improvement, and again, I'm very happy whenever I can see something like that. But again, the blade shape here is a Peach Pruner, and this is, again, a Sheffield design. I think for those in the rest of the world, we'd probably call this maybe a half-hawk, or if you want to be really, I suppose, technical, you could say it's a curved or modified Wharncliffe, as the spine is quite reminiscent of a Wharncliffe blade. Speaking of which, I did bring an Arthur Wright Wharncliffe out for comparison. Here is an Ettrick in Rosewood. And, of course, the grain and coloration is a little bit different, but the blades are very, very similar. In both cases, you have a curved spine. However, in the case of the Peach Pruner, the edge itself has a bit of a curvature to it, whereas the Wharncliffe is pretty much straight all along. Both, however, do have very impressive points, making them very good for delicate detail work, such as piercing. Again, these are two of my preferred, well, this is, I'd say, is my favorite, but the Peach Pruner is a traditional Sheffield design that you don't really see much of outside of, again, maybe George Wolstenholme and Joseph Rogers, A. Wright. And that's unfortunate to see, as I think the pattern has a lot of potential. It's a small knife, but you can still get a four-finger grip on it. For those with larger hands, it would be a little bit more difficult, but I still find it to be quite a comfortable knife in the hand. And overall, I would recommend one of these. If you're looking for a small, simple, Swayback style knife with maybe a slight curve in the blade, this would be an excellent choice. However, if you want something that still has a small, precise blade, but if you have larger hands, then I would recommend the Ettrick, as you can very clearly see, it has a much, much larger handle. Quick specs on the Peach Pruner. I'll bring out the ruler. You're looking at an overall length of around 6 inches. Yep, 6 inches. The overall blade length, and this is unfortunately not measuring the cutting edge very well, as curved blades are harder to discern, but you're looking at about 2.5 inches overall, with a cutting edge that comes in around 2.25. And even if you were to be very generous and say that because of the curved blade it would extend it out quite a bit, this still is coming in under 3 inches, no matter how you look at it. So this is very much a UK legal carry knife, being a slip joint as well. There is no lock, and it's just overall a very simple, traditional, unthreatening little knife. One thing I do like about this that the Ettrick does not really have, or just doesn't do very well, well, you can, I suppose, it's just not easy. You can pinch the Peach Pruner open very, very easily. And I know those who dislike nail nicks and find that they're uncomfortable to use, particularly with a stiff spring, having the ability to just pinch the blade open is something a lot of people enjoy, myself being one of them. And while you can do that with the Ettrick, it isn't nearly as easy. And I suppose that is one thing going for the Peach Pruner that the Ettrick lacks. So all in all, that's really all I have to say about this knife. Again, for an early Arthur Wright, this is very well put together. The craftsmanship is perhaps not Taylor's Eyewitness Premier Collection or Boker Collector's Series level of perfect, but for a traditional carry knife that's probably half the price of a case and definitely half to a third of the price of a GEC, this is a very, very competent piece. The steel, C70, again, it's not a super steel, but it's more than enough for a traditional knife like this. And you're getting some nice natural materials, whether you want plain rosewood or perhaps some buffalo horn. The materials are nice, the craftsmanship is very competent, and I think is improving every time I get a new Arthur Wright. And I'm very happy to see that. And again, this is the first of 3 knives I bought from this retailer, and the other 2 will be hopefully coming up fairly soon, within the next week or so. And again, I'm very impressed with this shop. I will go a little bit more in detail probably in the next video, but Steel City Cutlery, again, brilliant retailer, and I got the knives 9 days after they were dispatched from the UK. And keep in mind, I live in Canada, and our customs are generally pretty slow, and that's putting it kindly. So, very good service, and I would definitely buy from this retailer again. So, go give Steel City Cutlery a check if you want an Arthur Wright knife, and by all means, I think that the Peach Pruner is a pattern that I could definitely see myself collecting. Maybe not as much as the Ettrick, but I still would say that it's a knife I would be very happy to carry and also to collect. So, yeah, that's a solid 8 out of 10 from me. So thank you very much for watching. This has been the Arthur Wright & Son Peach Pruner in Rosewood, and this is the Knife Raven, as always, signing off. Goodbye.